invited my dad to my wedding. He showed up with his new family and acted like I didn't exist. I didn't want to invite my dad to my wedding. That's the truth. But my mom convinced me. Or maybe guilt did. Or that little, desperate part of me that still believed he might cared. He left when I was 10. One day he was Dad, the guy who helped me with science projects, made pancakes on Sundays, and danced with me in the living room to Stevie Wonder. The next, he was just gone. Moved across the state with a woman named Leah, who smiled too much and wore perfume that gave me headaches. My mom never badmouthed him. Not once. She always said, people change. But we don't stop loving them, we just learn how to love them differently. I didn't understand that at 10. I barely understand it now. Growing up, I'd hear from him maybe twice a year. A birthday card. A Merry Christmas text. Sometimes even a gift, though I always knew it was Leah who picked it out. She once sent me a makeup set when I was 12. I hated makeup. She didn't know that, of course. Why would she? By the time I got engaged to Noah, I hadn't seen my dad in nearly 3 years. And yet, when it came time to make the guest list, there was his name. Dad. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed out the invitation. Hi, Dad. I'm getting married in July. I'd love for you to be there, if you want to come. I didn't expect a reply. But 2 days later, he sent a text. Wouldn't miss it. Proud of you. Can I bring the family? The family, that phrase made my stomach twist. I didn't even know the names of his stepkids. I had no relationship with Leah beyond a few awkward holiday exchanges. And yet, I said yes. Because it felt cruel to say no. Because maybe some part of me thought he'd show up and finally see me. The weeks flew by. I got caught up in cake tastings, floral arrangements, fittings, and finalizing seating charts. I shoved the idea of his visit into the back of my mind like a sweater I didn't want to wear. But the night before the wedding, it all came crashing back. I was sitting with my maid of honor, Kira, going over last-minute details. We had champagne. Laughed about my disastrous bachelorette party. Everything felt light, until I checked my phone. A text from my dad. Just landed. Leah and the kids are excited. See you tomorrow, sweetheart. I stared at that message for a long time. Sweetheart. He hadn't called me that in over a decade. Kira saw my face change. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Lied. Yeah. Just nerves. But it wasn't nerves, it was dread, and I had no idea just how right I was to feel it. The morning of the wedding was a whirlwind. Makeup artists, hairstylists, photographers, nervous giggles, and my mom squeezing my hand like she was trying to anchor me to the earth. But even through the flurry of mascara and music and mimosas, I felt it, that dull ache in my chest. That growing pressure. Like something was just off. At some point between my second glass of champagne and slipping into my dress, someone mentioned that my dad had arrived. Your father's here, with his wife and the kids. They're sitting near the front, the coordinator said cheerfully, like she was talking about old friends. I hadn't even seen him yet. I told myself it was fine. That it wasn't about him. That today was about me and Noah and the life we were building. But when I walked down that aisle, I felt it, like a spotlight had shifted. My dad was sitting in the second row. Not beside my mom, of course. He had Leah next to him, holding his hand. And 2 teenagers I didn't recognize. His new kids. He didn't stand when I walked by. He didn't smile. He didn't even cry, but Leah did. Leah cried like she was watching her own daughter get married. She clutched his arm and dabbed her eyes and whispered something to him I couldn't hear. And all I could think was, why is she crying? She doesn't even know me. The ceremony went off without a hitch. Noah was radiant. My vows made people tear up. The weather held up, and the pictures were perfect. But inside, I felt cracked. At the reception, things got worse. I caught Leah talking to one of my cousins, saying how proud she was of me. She referred to me as her stepdaughter. My cousin looked confused. So as my dad made a toast he wasn't supposed to. He stood up, clinked his glass, and said, "I just want to say how proud I am of my little girl." Then he launched into a speech about watching me grow up, teaching me to ride a bike, how much I reminded him of his own mother. No mention of my mom. No mention of the years he was gone. No acknowledgement that he had been a ghost through most of my life. People clapped. I forced a smile. But my hands were trembling under the tablecloth. Later, my mom leaned in and whispered, "You okay, baby?" I nodded. Again, I lied, but by the time we cut the cake, I was barely holding it together, and then came the moment that broke me completely. One of the photographers approached me with a smile. "Hey! We've got some beautiful shots with your dad and his family. Thought you'd want one for the album." He showed me the screen. There I was, standing between my father and Leah. Her arm around me. His hand on my shoulder. The teenagers flanking us like siblings. We looked like a family, but we weren't, and in that moment, I realized something that shattered me. I wasn't just the bride that day, I was the guest at my father's new life. After the photographer showed me that picture, that fake family portrait, I had to step outside. I told Noah I needed air, but really, I just needed to breathe without feeling like I was suffocating under someone else's fantasy. I stood by the side of the building, staring up at the sky, trying not to cry and ruin my makeup. And then I heard it. Leah's voice. "Did you see how beautiful everything turned out?" she was saying to someone. Her voice was light, almost giddy. Then I heard my dad respond, "Yeah, it's the nicest wedding I've ever been to. Honestly, Leah, I'm just glad you were here. She needed you today." "She needed you?" "She? As in me?" I stepped closer, staying behind the wall. I knew I shouldn't have listened. But I did. Leah laughed, low and soft. "I think people really believe I'm part of the family now." Her mom looked like she was gonna snap when I called her my stepdaughter. My heart dropped. She did that on purpose. Then Leah said something that still makes my stomach twist every time I think about it. "I told you this wedding would be a good first step. Once the baby comes, she'll lean on me even more. Just watch." "Wait, what? The baby?" I wasn't pregnant. No one told her I was pregnant. So either she was assuming, or planning for something that wasn't hers to control. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't about my wedding. This wasn't even about me. It was about her. Leah wasn't trying to be part of the family, she was trying to replace the one that already existed. She wanted to be the mom. The matriarch. The center. And my father? He was letting her. Worse, he was helping her. I went back into the reception like a ghost. Smiled for pictures. Danced with Noah. Thanked guests. But I felt detached from everything, like I was watching a play I was no longer part of. Later that night, I confronted my father. I pulled him aside and asked, "What did Leah mean about once the baby comes?" He looked confused. Then guilty. Then evasive. "She's just excited. You know how she gets. Don't read into it." But I was reading into it. And I was reading between every single line he didn't say. Because this wasn't just about a wedding. This was a woman who had inserted herself into my most important day, claimed a title that wasn't hers, cried fake tears, gave fake hugs, and plotted for a future I didn't invite her into. And my dad let it happen. That night, as Noah and I drove to the hotel, he asked, "Are you okay? You've been quiet." And I finally told him everything. Every word I heard. Every fake moment. Every forced smile. He didn't interrupt. He didn't say, "Come on, it's not that bad." He just pulled over, looked me in the eye, and said, "We can cut them off. Your real family is the one we're building now. Not the ones who didn't show up when it mattered." And in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. My wedding didn't unite a family. It exposed one. After the wedding, I told myself things would settle. That Leah had gotten whatever performance she needed out of her system. That now, maybe, she'd back off, but I was wrong. If the wedding was her debut, the weeks after were her takeover. 3 days after we got home from the honeymoon, I got a knock on the door. It was Leah. Holding a casserole. Wearing an apron. Smiling like a suburban housewife from a 1950s commercial. I figured you'd be tired after the trip, thought I'd bring dinner. I didn't invite her in, but she walked in anyway. Set the dish on the counter. Started asking where we kept our plates. Noah and I just stood there, stunned. She talked like this was normal. Like she lived here. And it didn't stop. She began showing up every few days, just dropping by. Sometimes she brought food. Sometimes she brought cleaning supplies. One time, she showed up with paint samples, saying she thought the guest room could be brightened up. The guest room, the room I had set up as a home office, where I planned to work remotely. Leah had decided it was too serious for a newlywed home. I asked her to stop coming unannounced. She laughed. Your family. Families don't need appointments. I finally told my dad she was making me uncomfortable. That her behavior was invasive. He responded with, she's just trying to be part of your life. She's lonely. Be kind. Be kind. To the woman who stood in my place during my wedding, to the woman who introduced herself to guests as my stepmom even though my real mother was 2 tables away, to the woman who now stood in my kitchen, rearranging cabinets without asking. Noah was furious. He started locking the door when we were home. When Leah knocked, we didn't answer, and then, she started texting him, friendly texts. Too friendly. Let me know if you ever want me to teach you that lasagna recipe. Hope you're taking care of my girl, she's got a temper, huh? You look so handsome in your suit at the wedding. I almost cried. Almost cried. She didn't cry when I walked down the aisle, but she almost cried over Noah. One night, he handed me his phone and said, this is getting out of control. I agreed. So I blocked her number on both our phones, and that's when she turned to Facebook. She started posting public messages. Some people forget who helped them when they had no one. Sad to see what gratitude looks like these days. You welcome someone into your heart, and they slam the door in your face. And then, she started messaging my friends, saying things like, I'm worried about her. I think she's being manipulated. She's not herself lately. If anything ever happens, just know I tried to help. She was painting herself as a victim. As the concerned parent. As if I was a child. As if Noah was some controlling man she had to save me from. It was like watching someone write a fanfiction about my life, where I was the damsel and she was the hero, except I never asked to be rescued. And I certainly didn't need her. One night, I got a text from my cousin, the one who had taken that wedding photo Leah staged. She sent a screenshot from Leah's private Facebook album, the caption under the picture, my baby girl on her big day, so proud to see the woman you've become. My baby girl. Leah had cropped out my mom. She had captioned my wedding photo like she had raised me. That's when I realized, this wasn't just delusion, it was obsession, and I was done playing nice. I stopped being polite. I stopped trying to be the good daughter or the bigger person. This woman had hijacked my life. My wedding. My husband. My identity, and now, she was performing it all online, like it was her story to tell. So I unfriended her. Blocked her everywhere. Noah did the same. We even talked about installing a security camera, just in case. It felt dramatic, but after everything, we didn't feel safe not doing it. That's when Leah escalated again. It started with a letter, not an email. Not a text. A handwritten letter, slipped under our door. 6 pages long, front and back. It started with, I know you're hurting. I know you think I'm the villain. And it only got worse from there. She talked about how she sacrificed everything to help my father after my mom left. A lie, by the way. My mom left him, and Leah was his rebound 6 months later. She said she was just trying to be a mother figure and that I was lashing out because I never healed from the divorce. She called Noah a wedge between us. Said she forgave him. As if he had done something wrong by marrying me. Then came the line that made me tear the letter in half. One day, you'll understand. I only ever wanted to be loved like a real mother. Like a real mother. She was trying to rewrite my entire life, trying to insert herself into a role she never earned, never deserved, but she wasn't done. The next week, I got a call from my HR department. Apparently, someone had submitted a concerned citizen tip about me, said I'd been emotionally unstable and possibly abusing substances. My job launched a wellness check. I had to sit through a humiliating meeting, explaining that it was all a lie. I knew it was Leah. Couldn't prove it. But I knew she had gone from showing up with casseroles to trying to ruin my reputation. That night, I called my dad, told him everything, the Facebook posts, the texts, the letter, the HR situation. He sighed and said, "She just loves too hard sometimes." That broke me. She just loves too hard. That's what you say when someone buys too many birthday gifts, not when they stalk, manipulate, and sabotage your daughter's life. I told him I didn't want Leah in my life. At all, not at holidays. Not at family events. Not even in the background, and if he couldn't respect that, then I'd have to distance myself from him. He hung up. I cried harder than I had in months, not just from anger. From grief, because I realized I hadn't just lost control of my own life, I was losing my father too. That was the night Noah sat next to me and said, "She's not going to stop until she thinks she's won. So we need to show her, she already lost." And that's when we came up with a plan, not revenge. Not pettiness, just truth, made undeniable. We were going to expose her obsession, her lies, her manipulations, and we were going to make sure everyone, especially my dad, finally saw her for who she really was. Noah and I knew we couldn't beat Leah at her own game by staying silent. She lived for attention, for likes and comments, for applause from people who didn't know better. So we gave her exactly what she wanted. A spotlight, just, not the one she expected. We created a private website. Password protected. Shared only with close family, mutual friends, and a few people who'd really known me growing up. We titled it, "When Someone Tries to Become You." Then we posted everything. Screenshots of Leah's creepy Facebook posts about Noah and me. Her fake mother-daughter captions. Her staged photos pretending to host our engagement dinner, which she never even attended. The letter she hand-delivered, scanned and highlighted. The anonymous HR complaint, along with our suspicion it was her. And finally, a side-by-side of one of her wedding posts, copied almost verbatim from mine, just with her name and face swapped in. It wasn't hateful, it wasn't mean, it was clinical, just facts. Receipts. Dates. Context. We called it a case study in obsession. And we added one final message at the end: we didn't want to share this. We hoped it would stop quietly. But when someone tries to steal your voice, sometimes you have to speak louder. We clicked publish. And waited. The fallout took 48 hours. First, my cousin called me, completely stunned. She said she always thought Leah's posts were weird, but assumed I was okay with them. Then a friend of Leah's, someone who'd always sided with her, reached out and said, "I had no idea it went this far. I'm so sorry." But the biggest shift came from my dad. He showed up at our house. No warning. No call, just stood in our doorway with tears in his eyes. "I didn't know," he said. "I didn't want to know. I thought she was just trying too hard. I didn't see this." I didn't say anything at first. I let him sit in the discomfort. Finally, I asked, "Do you still think she just loves too hard?" He shook his head. "No. I think she doesn't know who she is, so she tried to become you." It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. He told us he'd moved out of the house. That he needed time to figure things out. I didn't ask for details. I didn't care anymore. I just needed peace. Leah never responded publicly, but her account went private. All the posts disappeared. She faded, like a shadow retreating from the light, and for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. Not because everything was perfect. Not because the damage was undone. But because I had taken back my name. My identity. My story. She wanted my life. So I showed her what it looked like when someone owned it instead. And that was the moment she finally lost.